tremendous amount of respect for this man and what he's done for our community. And it is my pleasure to introduce Steve Baker, who wears multiple hats. That's right. Yeah.
One of the Baker
Take my
boys.
$20.
Yep, one of the Baker boys.
How you doing, Steve?
Good, good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Well, I'm just going to tell you a few things that I do. I'm not going to tell you about the weather forecast. But how I got my start into broadcast journalism. My dad at one point had owned WPTW, and so broadcast has always been in our family. And he got his start at Channel 7 back in 1946 to 59. And so I always wanted to work at Channel 7. I always wanted to get into the news business. When I got out of the service, I told Dad I really wanted to get a job at Channel 7 and start shooting TV news. And so in the meantime, he had hired me at the radio station. And he told Jack Michaels, if I'll give Steve 6 months. If he doesn't work out, he's out the door. And so apparently I worked out.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. In 1980, while still working at the radio station, I started shooting film up here for Channel 7. So I've been with them since April Fool's Day 1980. And prior to that, I talked to Dick Beezer, who was the news director of Channel 7 at the time, and told him I'd like to start shooting some video. And he says, well, you need experience. I said, well, how do you get that? He said, that's your problem. and he knew my dad and everything. So they stole me away from Channel 7 after I kept beating, or from Channel 2 after I kept beating their butts. And went with them on April Fool's Day 1980. And then full-time several years later. When I started, I had a 16mm camera. And when I was working as a stringer, I'd have my own camera. And so Channel 2 found it for me at an auto body shop on East 3rd Street in Dayton. And the guy brought it out in shop rags. He wanted a $500 bank check and no receipt.
Doesn't sound suspicious at all.
No, not at all. And I never took it into a police department with me because I was afraid to check the serial number on it. So I've gone from really Polaroids, because when I was working at the radio station, we were doing the news on cable TV. It was also part of the operation of PTW. And then 16mm videotapes, all the different sizes. And then right now I shoot on something the size of a credit card. And it's about a $30,000 camera. But what I'm using more and more every day is my cell phone, the video on the cell phone. Because you cannot tell the difference when you watch it on the air if I shot it with this or with the 35-pound camera. That's much. You can't. And if I could tell a difference, I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't be using this. I can't forget this. My wife is on Troy City Council. She's got about 6 months left, and she'll have 20 years, and she's going to be not. She didn't run for re-election, but it's really interesting at our house because she'll come home from a meeting, and I say, "Hey, what do you guys do in executive session?" And she says, "I can't tell you." I said, "You can trust me. I'm a reporter." And she said, "That's the problem." So if I hear something on the street the city's going to be sued or something, I never tell her ahead of time. I'll let it be a surprise when it gets filed. But so I usually hit the street early in the morning. That next morning I hit the street, came back in an hour later. I says, "Oh, you bought cemetery land last night." And she says, "I can't tell you." So 3 days later, she says, "Okay, you're right." So I picked it up on the street. Didn't need her. But we'll get into an argument every once in a while, sometimes over the safety service director or roundabouts or something like that, and I'll tell how stupid that is, and so we'll get into not an argument, but discussion. And I says, "You know, I didn't even vote for you." And she said, "You want to know something? I didn't need your vote." So, but anyway, her days, her term expires the end of December. So there goes my source. I don't know what I'm going to do. Law enforcement, I've had a couple of neat experiences over the years. I was heading to a fatal accident one day, and I was living in Piqua at the time, and so on Washington Road, sheriff's cruiser was heading towards Piqua, red light and siren. I was heading towards the accident the correct way, correct direction, And the deputy turned around, pulled me over. I got out of my car, walked up to his car, and he had a map out on the dashboard, and he says, "Baker, where's Wilson and Fenner?" And I said, "Follow me." And so he followed me, and he still had his lights on, the siren, and it was like I was in a Volkswagen, and it was like a pursuit. And I got to Washington and 41, I busted the stop sign like they do, and got to Wilson and Fenner, or got to Wilson, pulled over, he went around me, went up to the scene like, you know, nothing happened, or he knew exactly where he was going. But I waited until after he passed away before I told that story. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some of the. I stay out of Piqua the third Friday, the third weekend of Christmas, in December, because I've had three injuries, and over the years they were all in that weekend, third weekend, and in Piqua. Once I tripped over a fire hose and ended up having knee surgery. I was at a drug bust, and I stepped down off a curb, and there was the gutter, and the asphalt was about that much higher, and I tripped there and ended up getting rotator cuff surgery. And I can't remember the third one. It's probably hit my head, probably. That's why I can't remember. But there was a third one, so I stay out of people during that time of the year. For Channel 7, I have 5 counties: Miami, Dark, Shelby, Mercer, and Auglaize. And I'm sort of, in a way, I don't want to use the word retired, but I cut back and under contract with them up now. And so I kind of pick what I want to shoot, and it's a good life. And for about 25 years now, I've been helping the Fisher Cheney Funeral Home, and so this gives me the opportunity to work more funerals there. And it's a good gig. I'm enjoying it. Well, so there's been a lot of interesting stories. Give me a second. I know. I'm real brave when they bring a person out of a building or arrest somebody that got handcuffs on, and this guy they were bringing out of in Piqua, and had his sport coat over his head, and he says, and I was shooting video of him. He says, "Hey Mac, turn that camera off. One more charge isn't going to make a difference."
What are some of your most favorite stories to cover and be involved in?
One where the ones where no other media is there, where I got the scoop. But and I'm a one-man band, so I shoot my own stuff, and that's when I started. That was highly unusual, but that's the way I wanted to do it. Nowadays, when they're hiring reporters, some of them have to shoot their own stuff now in this day and age. But I don't work well with others, and I just shoot my own. If I don't like the way the story looks, there's only one person to blame, and that's me. And we do have and have had for a number of years a bureau in Troy. It's in downtown Troy, my office, and I can do everything, do the editing, and send it all into Dayton from there. So I don't even have to go to the mother house very often, unless it's a meeting that I have to. And then I'll tell them, well, speed it up because I left my car running and I'm burning your gas. So I want to get out. The day my son was born, I was riding with Ronnie Ventura, the Sheriff's Department, and he got a call from dispatch and says, "Unit 4, Steve Baker with you." He says, "Yeah, I'm telling him to get to Dr. Balda's office." A few of you remember Dr. Balda, Bill. and so we were pulling into town, and they called. This is Unit 4, Steve Baker still with you? He says, "Yep." Tell him to get him to Detmer Hospital. Tell him to go to Detmer Hospital. So my wife was delivering our first son, and my dad had to take her to the hospital and all this good stuff. So anyway, we were pulling into town and got a report of a body in a creek. And that would have been my first homicide as a reporter. And so I had a heck of a decision to make. And it was the first day, it was a body in a creek. It was a drug deal. And I went to the hospital for a few minutes, and then went out to the homicide scene. I'll continue on this story in a second. Our second child, our daughter, was adopted. And now that's a pretty good deal because you had to be home at 8 o'clock on a certain date when the children's services delivered. So I didn't have to worry about being out on the road. But anyway, this homicide went unsolved for 30 years. And I went to the sheriff's department on the 30th anniversary, which I remembered because it was my son's birthday. And they said, "What is a slow news day?" I said, "Yeah, I just want," because it was unsolved. And I said, "I just want to do a story about it." So they dug out some stuff. But anyway, so we had the story. And my last line in the story was, "Do the right thing. If you have any information, give the sheriff's department a call." Well, that night they did get a call, and the woman gave them a name. They found him out in Oklahoma City, and all they had was a partial fingerprint that they lifted off of a gun. And they found him out there, and that was the guy, 30 years later, and then brought him back to Miami County, and he had a trial, was convicted. And like a short time later, then his mother passed away at an elderly age. But she was able to, know that the person that murdered her son had been arrested and convicted, and that was 30 years later, and that was pretty cool.
We had Steve Lord,
Okay,
the
from
sheriff's
the
department here, spoke some time ago,
yeah.
and he told us about a cold case, or a couple of them, and that maybe.
Could have been one. Did he tell you about Jane Doe?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that was just unbelievable.
Buckskin girl.
Yeah, buckskin.
Yeah.
And that was some, all those years. And they did it through DNA and blood that they had. I mean, it wasn't even under refrigeration for those many years. I mean, and it was in the evidence room. And they were able to find her identification through that. And I was around for that story.
Did you do some tornado coverage?
Yes, and I was sure weird that night. This last. Usually when we have tornado warnings and stuff, I'll usually hit the street. And I was watching on TV, and I thought, I'm not going to go hit, And we even emptied out. We don't have a basement, so we emptied out a closet. And that's the first time I've ever been in a closet for the tornado. And then when you get out and see the damage and talk to the people, and it's just hard to comprehend. And then, it could have been our house. It could have been, who knows. What else? Any other questions? It's been a great career. Go ahead.
This is not a story so much about you, but your dad, years ago when I worked down at the Y, Piqua was one of the first ones to have cable, and your dad was responsible for that. He, joined up with Ohio Bell, and so they could use their poles. But the YMCA was able to get one of the first sets, and your brother Larry came down, and he was hooking it up for us, and one of the other fellows that worked for me said, "How much does that cost a month?" He says, $5 right now, but he says, when we get more subscribers, it's going to come way down.
Yeah. It was $5 a month for 7 channels.
Yeah.
Would you like to pay that now? Instead of, Dad was, when it was time to work, you worked. When it was time to play, you played. So, he gave me the job. But at our house, Dad was in sales when he was at WHIO, one of his jobs, and we could only have Coke in the house, had to shop at Kroger's, had to buy your cars at Bethany Ford, because they were all advertisers. When we got to Piqua, we were not allowed to eat at the Spot Restaurant, nor Burger King, Burger Chef, and a few other places, because they didn't advertise at the radio station. So once they did, then we could do that. And to this day, you won't find Pepsi in our house. We go to Kroger's, and if one of the brothers and sisters, you catch them drinking Pepsi, man, you just come down on them like, you were raised on Coke and you're not allowed to drink Pepsi. Because that's where the advertising comes from. And don't have to tell me twice, it was the way you do it. What else do you want to know? It's been a good gig, go ahead.
How do you, as an example of the coverage you did on that accident over on 41 there, that head-on, how do you do your own assigning of what you do, or how do you know where to go, what to cover?
Right. I listen to scanners, that's another thing too. I listen to scanners a lot. At nighttime, I have three police radios on, and it's not good night, I love you, it's turn those off. Turn those off, I'll unplug them. So, but anyway, you hear the radio traffic. On that particular situation, Dayton called. They heard it down there too. And it's ways like that to just hear it and go. Sometimes I'll just cruise around and see what we come up with. So that's how you get to a lot of the spot news stuff through the radios. And I get phone calls once in a while, and but I never go around and say, hey, so and so called or so and so called, because I just don't do that.
You said how many counties you're
About 5: Miami, Dark, Shelby, Mercer, and all Glades.
How do you handle that?
Especially
Mercer and all Glades.
Yeah, probably don't get up there as much as I should, but just keep an eye on them, and if they have a press conference, they'll call us. And then we had our some of the Dayton crews went up with their storm damage that they had up there, the tornadoes. But going out in the field, like the next day, it was just unbelievable. What you saw, and the people.
Steve, you ever considered using a drone?
I have one. It's in the closet. I got it for Christmas.
Still in the box?
Yeah, the battery's probably dead. I flew it in the living room on Christmas Day. But no, I would like to learn how to fly it. But we have a guy that shoots drone video for us, and the video is actually better than what Chopper 7. And we don't have Chopper 7 anymore, so if I want to make it sound like I'm in the chopper for the story, just go like this. that would be wrong. I wouldn't do that. The chopper is pretty neat. I was on an assignment, we were shooting something, and something red was dripping. I was sitting in the back, and something red was dripping on my shirt. And I said something to the pilot, well, it's hydraulic fluid. He put the chopper down in a cornfield, just put it down there. And there was some kind of a leak or something. And so when I got out of the chopper, I did what the Pope does, kiss the ground. And I had to I called my brother Tom to come and get me, because the chopper pilot, we were in Dark County, had to stay with the chopper, because he was having somebody come up and take a look at it. But that was, I thought, oh, shoot. And it was hydraulic fluid. I know I'm missing some. It's like I mentioned, it's been a good career. I'm not ready to put the camera down, and that's the bad part, I guess. But it's in my blood. It's truly in my blood. It's truly in my blood. Go ahead.
Going back to WPTW days, now was that back when they only broadcast, 8 or 10 hours a day?
The AM station was like that, daytime. And then the FM was, I think we signed off at midnight, but it could have been on 24 hours.
Now was that back in Bob Buck days and...
Bill Fox.
Bill Fox?
Bill Fox.
I don't remember
Okay.
that name, but there was a Kenny Ranch days.
I think Kenny was before Dan.
Okay.
And then when we were moving from Dayton to Piqua, we were, they bought a house on Echo Lake Drive. And I thought that right there at the lake, I thought, well, that's so neat, we're going to move to a house on a lake. And so that was, anyway, the radio station. I left there full, in '83 basically, and so a couple of years ago, I was going through the lunch line at the county fair, and this lady says, "Is there anything you can do about the music at WPTW?" And my stock answer a lot of times is, "Yeah, I'll see what I can do." And so 4 hours later, the station burned down. We had a very serious fire that same afternoon. So I went back to the lunch line, went through there, and I says, "Well, I took care of PTW." And she didn't laugh. But that's what I told her. I took care of the radio station. Told her I'll see what I can do.
We did a few interviews, didn't we, when I worked with Red Cross? You came out to the chapter and I did some interviews.
Interviews and, yeah. Those were the good days, huh?
Not for those people, but for the
Yeah,
chapter, yeah.
right. But anyway, any other questions?
You had mentioned Jack Michaels.
Mhm.
Do you know where he's at?
I think he's
now?
in Florida.
I've heard. I think that's where he went, but I hadn't.
I haven't seen him for a long time.
Yeah.
He went from PTW to the radio station in Sydney.
Yeah.
And then I'm not
Remember that.
sure where he went from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to have a lot of contact with him, and I was on the Board of Education. And
Right.
Interviewed, and one time, he always kidded me about it. Instead of him thanking me for it, I thanked him.
Oh, man. I didn't know what to say.
So every time he'd see me, he said, "Bring that up."
Yeah, but Dad's the one who told Jack Michaels that he'd give him 6 months. And if I didn't work out, I'd be out the door. So, here I am.
Do you know anything about because I know Spectrum has their news now, their news channel, I know Eric over there. Is that based out of Columbus?
I don't know a whole lot about them, but they're pretty impressive, I think. It's, I'll catch myself watching them. When I saw him on there, that was kind of neat. But it's 24-hour Ohio news. It's on channel. When you turn your cable TV on now, that's the first thing that comes on is that channel. And it's all news.
The meteorologist, Steve Elwell, he went to Columbus.
Yeah, but now he is on that Spectrum channel.
Yeah, I said.
Yeah,
He went
so-
back, so I imagine it is.
Yeah,
Channel 1.
so he's a competitor.
Well, he was from that area.
Yeah, that's where he came from.
to Channel 7.
What do you think about Dante?
Very good, yeah.
He's pretty funny and good on his feet.
Mhm.
I'm waiting on Kirsty to come back.
Yeah, should be soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything else? Enjoy your afternoon. It's going to be sunny, warmer.
They did pretty good being there impromptu. Came as a guest and
No, I feared this.
Steve, on behalf of the club, we've got this handy dandy little water opener so that you always remember us, right?
I'll do that.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I was at Kewanee and Piqua, Troy for 19 years of perfect attendance. So, and then it got to the point that Wednesdays were kind of hard to come off the street. But what I really liked was going to the different clubs and the makeups and the pancake days.
We'll take the money, you can join us.
Hey. Hey, thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, if there isn't anything else,